Good afternoon, friends from the media. Thank you for coming to our press briefing. We want to share with you the results of our International Conference on Sustainable Development with a special focus on tourism. And at the same time, we also launched the Sustainable Development Solutions Network of Indonesia, and or for short SDSN, SDSN Southeast Asia. I just wanted to give a little bit of background. Why are we doing this conference? Mainly, one reason is because one of the priorities of APEC is sustainable and equitable development. So we decided that this was an excellent opportunity for us to have an international conference with experts, international and Indonesian experts, to share ideas, best practices, and most importantly, solutions to sustainable development. Why this whole notion of sustainable development has actually become a topic of much discussion is because, as you all know, we are close to approaching the end of the so-called target for Millennium Development Goals in 2015, and since the Rio +20 meeting, there's all this discussion about the need to move forward on sustainable development, which is multidimensional: economic, social, and environmental. Later on, Professor Jeffrey Sachs will elaborate on that. So having this broader notion and having targets and also goals that will be related to sustainable development necessitates us, because it is multidimensional goal or objective. Sustainable development is multidimensional. We also need to have a network which is multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder. That's basically why we decided to have this conference, inviting academicians, experts, international organizations, NGOs, and business people, as well as policymakers, to come together and once again reinforce our understanding of sustainable development, but most importantly talk about solutions, best practices, and actions that we could do together. Why are we doing this at an APEC meeting, or in a meeting which is related to Asia Pacific? It's because what the Asia Pacific region does or does not do will have an impact on sustainable development. As you should by now know all the numbers. It's 55% of the world economy, 44% of world trade, and 30% of the 1 billion tourists who are roaming the world is coming from this region, and 60% of the CO2 emissions. So what we do or do not do will have an impact. The network's first event, so the SDSN, Sustainable Development Solutions Network of Indonesia, and the Southeast Asia Regional Hub. Our first event is actually this conference, which has the theme Trihita Karana, because the philosophy of Trihita Karana in Bali is really embodying sustainable development. Trihita Karana is local wisdom of the Balinese people from centuries ago. But Abika can explain that much better than I can. But in essence, it means how we must have balance and harmony between man and his creator, man and nature, and man and man. And we must give back to nature, because nature, or take care of nature, because it is from nature that you get your livelihood and your sustenance. So that's really the event, and we had a very good discussion between academicians, practitioners, innovators, business people, and we also had a showcase of solutions already, sustainable solutions already implemented in Indonesia, from micro hydro power to generate electricity in villages, to innovative ways of teaching math to children in Papua, to the Bupati of Bojonegoro explaining how he was able to pave his roads. So we talk not only about concept, but we also talk about solutions, and the idea of how can you replicate these solutions elsewhere, and can you scale it up so that you can begin to address sustainable development. I think I will end there, and I will ask Professor Jeffrey Sachs, who is the director of the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, as well as the director of the Earth Institute in the University of Columbia, which is doing so much work on sustainable development. And I will ask Andika to say something on Trihita Karana. Jeff?
Thank you very much. It's really been a wonderful conference, and especially for us, the launch of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network for Indonesia and for Southeast Asia is a very important occasion. The SDSN, as we call it, was established by United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon following the Rio +20 summit last June 2012. Secretary General asked me to work under his auspices to establish a worldwide knowledge network that we expect to operate at least till the year 2030. It's not a short-term, one-time meeting, but it is to be a knowledge network to help Indonesia, countries in this region, and worldwide to solve very challenging problems of combining economic development, social inclusion, and environmental sustainability. President Yudhoyono will be the patron of the Southeast Asian Sustainable Development Solutions Network, and Minister Marie Pangestu will be the leader of all of this in the region. She's obviously so dynamic and experienced on many, many fronts in industry, trade, tourism, creative economy, that we will absolutely depend on her expertise and knowledge to be successful. President Yudhoyono, as you know, is one of the world leaders in sustainable development, and as co-chair of the high-level panel on the post-2015 agenda, played a absolutely pivotal role to ensure that sustainable development will be at the very center of the new 15-year development agenda. Last week at the General Assembly, on September 25th, there was a special event in which the member states of the General Assembly agreed to a timeline to reach the post-2015 agenda. This was heavily influenced by the successful high-level panel. On September 25th, the world's governments said that sustainable development will be the center of the new agenda, that ending extreme poverty will be the highest single priority, that, as the minister just explained, a holistic vision of society will underpin the sustainable development goals, and that all of this is to be set in place by 2015. I'll mention one other point, which is that also in 2015, the governments of the world are committed to agreeing on a new climate change treaty. It was especially notable for us that President Humala of Peru graced this conference because he will host a very important summit, or what they call the Conference of the Parties on Climate Change, next year in Lima on the way to the 2015 agreement. So it was a wonderful opportunity for the President of Peru to explain his vision of sustainable development, which he did very powerfully, and also to see the widespread interest in success of the initiative that he's going to have a great role in during next year especially. So we're off to a very solid start. There will be a network of universities in Indonesia constituting the Indonesia part of the Global Sustainable Development Solutions Network. The Climate Center at the University of Indonesia will be the lead institution, and there are many, many universities around the country that will participate. And then we will have universities all over Southeast Asia as part of the regional network. And Minister Marie Pangestu had a wonderful idea that given all the excitement from this conference, we will have another conference next year to keep up the momentum, perhaps on a different aspect of sustainable development. This year was on sustainable tourism. Next year maybe oceans or energy or some other set of challenges. But we're going to have to be very deliberate and diligent in our work because the challenges are huge and the world is not on a sustainable course right now. And that's why the dangers of climate change and ocean acidification and loss of biodiversity are so profound. We have to move quickly. Finally, let me note that thanks to the wonderful initiative of Sherry Nir-Salim, who is here with us and head of the Unity in Diversity Foundation and a tremendous world leader in sustainable development. Part of the creative campus that will be established in Bali will be devoted to the Solutions Network. And we will view Bali, therefore, not only in its inspiration of Trihati Kirana, but also as a meeting place for world experts to show how real solutions can be developed and to scale them up when success is achieved. So we're in I believe, not only one of the most beautiful places in the world, but also a place that's going to play a leadership role for years to come in sustainable development, with a campus devoted to solutions for sustainable development throughout the region and throughout the world. And that's an extremely exciting part of the launch. So this has been very successful. It's wonderful that it's part of APEC because, as the minister has said, as APEC goes, so goes the world on these issues. APEC has a dominant effect on global climate, on, of course, the Pacific Ocean and its health, and on so many other aspects of sustainable development. This is a very historic and wonderful place to be launching the network. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
I think the Balinese particularly is very proud and honored because the philosophy of way of life of people in Bali, Trihita Karana, is used as the topic on this international seminar. In this case, I personally, as Balinese, really get very proud, and I would like to congratulate the Minister, Ibu Mari. She is the one probably as the ambassador of Trihita Karana. Really, she is the one putting the driving force. And the second, after the ambassador, I'm sorry, because she is minister, now I call it ambassador. I'm downgrading, no. But I consider also as the special envoy of Trihita Karana, Ibu Sherry Nir-Salim. Ibu, would you stand up, please? She is the one really putting as the driving force behind to bring this Trihita Karana at least in this APEC forum now. Once again, that we really appreciate on behalf of people in Bali that really that we're proud of it. But why this Trihita Karana now that has been put into this picture related to the sustainable development? Because during this seminar has been identified the way that we developing the development, probably that somewhere, someplace, not yet properly done. And here, the Trihita Karana concept, philosophy, we propose one of the solutions to bring correctly the development, what we call it, the sustainable development. Why this Trihita Karana? Relation with man, with God, or the Creator, basically that bring the values of spiritual, good values from any religions in this world. In brief, basically that we take what is the ethics and what is the moral from that belief. Consider as the basis on the development. Relation with man or nations, this is how we respect each other. Placing human being at the center, as the subject, not just as an object. And with the environment that we respect each other, how people, men, respect environment, and environment influence us. I impressed with the expression of one representative of local community in Serangan. When we asked about this, Ibu Mari asked to him, what do you think about Trihita Karana? The first that he expresses, don't ask what don't ask what environment could give to us, but ask what we as human beings could give to the environment. I think this is the basic essentials of this Trihita Karana. And we hope with this particular philosophy that we can share that how probably that the sustainable development could be done in the future. Related to this, in tourism particularly, the implementation of this, we concern on the development of people. Because tourism basically business people to people. In this case, that we have to be able to prepare. Take the case in Bali. Because what is the main attraction of tourism in Bali? Culture, way of life of people. People creating culture. For that reason that we emphasize the priority on the development, empowerment of people. That's why that we have created what we call a Kreatif campus. Kreatif campus basically is not only preparing people just to be workers, no, but the most important is bringing the ideal from all over the world and then expose to the local people and how we could stimulate their creativity in order to be able to anticipate the future. This is basically the Kreatif campus is. Thank you.
The basic idea of sustainable development is that each society should devote itself to three major objectives, but together: economic development, social inclusion, and environmental sustainability. So sometimes it's said we're moving beyond GNP. GNP means just economic development, but not paying enough attention to whether the benefits are well distributed in society and not paying enough attention to the environment. So the decision taken at the Rio +20 summit was to put all three dimensions, economic, social, and environmental, together, and to place them under the framework of sustainable development goals. Now, the world's governments are negotiating those specific goals now. And in 2015, there will be an agreement reached by the 193 governments of the United Nations of a new set of goals for the period 2015 to 2030. So government should start now on sustainable development. They don't have to wait till 2015. They need to start working on a safer environment, low carbon energy, renewable energy, resilient cities, better delivery of health and education services, fighting poverty. Those principles are already in place, but in 2015 there will be specific goals that will be adopted at the UN and that all countries will then be directed to satisfy, to achieve during the next 15-year period. And this, I think, can be a breakthrough for the world because it will be a kind of guiding light for countries. Don't wreck the environment anymore. Take seriously the protection of the planet. Take seriously the help for poor people so that income inequality is reduced, not increased. These are the basic principles that I think will be very important.
Last one.
Yeah, last one.
We've been hearing that indigenous communities should be involved in tackling climate change because they have a connection and knowledge to connection to nature. Can you give us examples of how successful have been initiatives or programs involving indigenous communities in relation to climate change? Thank you.
All over the world, indigenous communities have faced poverty, exclusion, loss of political rights, loss of resources for many generations. And so indigenous communities, which number around 400 million people in the world total, have a high concentration of poverty and social exclusion. So part of the responsibility of sustainable development is empowerment of indigenous communities. This has been a core challenge of fighting extreme poverty, helping indigenous communities who often don't even receive public services but have their land taken away from them instead. So this is a central social and political responsibility. Indigenous communities live in vulnerable environments often, and also in forest environments or high biodiversity environments. And one of the great lessons of protecting forests, for example, which plays a big role in avoiding climate change because deforestation accounts for roughly 15 to 20% of the total emissions, or land use change is a big part of the carbon emissions. When communities are empowered to manage their resources, not to have them taken away by outside interests, but to manage those resources in a sustainable manner, they do a very good job. And so if indigenous communities are empowered to manage their forestry resources or their marine resources, one can expect that there can be very, very good performance to stop deforestation, to rebuild forests, and to rebuild biodiversity. And so I think your question is a very good one, because empowering indigenous communities can also mean avoiding environmental degradation, and in the area of climate change, avoiding the kind of land use change and deforestation that is so threatening. It threatens everything, by the way. It threatens the livelihoods of the people. It threatens the survival of biodiversity. Some of the species that are threatened with extinction, like the orangutan or the gorilla species in Africa, depend on local communities to protect them. And so this is also part of the biodiversity challenge. But the climate change challenge also depends on us rebuilding the carbon base of our ecosystems. And this is something that indigenous communities can do very, very well if they are empowered to do it. We saw a powerful example of one of the solution initiatives today of the local communities taking responsibility for reforestation, and it works very well.
I think I tend to agree that this is a process. This is not something that necessarily has an end game, because there is no end to the imagination of mankind as to how to make it simpler, more enjoyable, and more. On the issue of visa facilitation, there must be an end game. But it's still a process now, and I think we still need to work more. You know, I have a number in front of me. In 2005, Indonesia had 36 countries that would be granted visa upon arrival. In 2010, this has become 65 countries. So the progress is done in 5 years, 5-6 years, you've almost doubled. And we have to keep going like this. Is there an end game? Of course there is an end game. We have the right to dream of a world that you don't need visas to travel from one country to another. Open borders and open skies are not a dream anymore. They can become a reality. This is the end game that we're looking at. But it is not something that we are going to stop working at. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. With that, we close this press conference.
Maybe one last one.
One last one.
They said that the number of travelers decreased due to the register flight during the APEC event. As the minister, what do you think? Thank you.
Well, I think it's, we will have to see in the numbers, but I don't think that should be necessarily the case, because the closure of the airport, which has already been announced on the 6th, 8th and 9th, the hours that the airport would be closed was already informed to all the airlines and travel agencies since a few months ago, so people can anticipate when they should come and when they should leave. And if you plan well, I believe that should not affect your travel plan, because what's happening within Bali for APEC is really only confined to the Nusa Dua area. And even within the Nusa Dua area, as long as you have a pass, you can still go in and out of Nusa Dua, even if you're not involved in the APEC meeting. The rest of Bali is business as usual. And I think we should also look at the impact, the direct impact that the APEC meeting has on Bali and on Indonesia. Just for this APEC meeting alone, I believe the estimate is around 5,000 to 7,000 people directly coming. And most importantly, the quantification is going to be difficult, but the impact this meeting will have on the international profile of Indonesia, which will then lead to future travel, is something which is intangible, but I would suspect that I would think that the impact is going to be huge, because we are showing to the world that Indonesia is a safe place to come, and not just a safe place, but with 21 leaders coming, and that we are capable of organizing a major international event. And we have used every opportunity within the APEC program, including the peak event, which is the leaders meeting and the leaders dinner and culture night, to show the best and the most beautiful of Indonesia, the culture, the creative products, as well as the places. And for all of you journalists, please take advantage of our free free tour at the Indonesia Tourist Information Center on which floor are we? On the first floor. At the entrance, you can register for a free trip for various places in Bali. And if you have questions and you want to visit other places beyond Bali, you can also get that information there. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to add something to that. This is not a local issue at all. This is a global issue. It happened in many, many other parts of the world.
We have to start over. He's going to record. This is important.
This is a global issue, not a local issue. Barcelona, one of the most famous cities now, during the Olympic Games, witnessed a dip. Germany, during the FIFA World Cup, witnessed a dip. The UK, during the Olympics last summer, witnessed a dip. But the long-term benefits were incredible. Barcelona was never the same after the Olympics and the World Fair. Germany transformed its entire image of a nation and a country. And the UK rose on top of all the other challenges that it was about. You have to look at the big picture. It is normal that people would say, it's too busy now, let's wait. But the impact that an event like this will have long-term on Bali, you are going to see and you're going to feel and you're going to remember. So you're not alone in this, and believe me, the big picture and the legacy that meetings like this keep, and the impact and the effect it leaves on the image and the infrastructure and the ability and the readiness of any destination to receive big events like this cannot be underestimated at all.
Just a final point on that. Bogor Goals, which was the last time we hosted APEC, still lives in the APEC world, and everybody knows about the Bogor Goals in APEC.